This is a story called My Story About the Holocaust, Part 3. Journeys, Children of the Holocaust Tell Their Stories. Introduction by Stephen D. Smith, edited by Wendy Whitworth. Introduction. Try and imagine for a minute that you're a 10-year-old child and something really significant has happened in your life. Maybe a member of your family dies or your parents split up. Maybe you have a new sibling or your parents take you to live in another country where you have to make new friends and learn a new language. Whenever these big things happen in our lives, we will all remember them quite vividly. Many years down the line, they will stand out in our minds and we will talk about them. I can remember a time when my parents were thinking of leaving their jobs and moving to a new house when I was 10 years old. I can still remember the uncertainty and the discussions, and actually moving a few months later. Now, try and imagine that you are a child and your whole world has been turned upside down. Try and imagine being taken away from your parents, forced to hide, and losing your brothers and sisters. Just try and imagine being sent to another country or to live with a family you've never met before and who you don't know. Just imagine moving to a tiny space with hardly any food or water and not being able to play in case you get caught. If you would have had to live fearing for your life on a daily basis and always wondering why the world was full of nothing but sadness, then the memories will stand out to you very clearly. Stephen D. Smith, Executive Director, Shoah Foundation Institute, Los Angeles. Ruth Barnett, are we nearly there yet? Excuse me. I was born in January 1935 in Berlin. My name is Ruth Barnett. Back then, my dad was a young lawyer and my grandmother had her own cinema and advertising business, meaning that her family was quite well off. Before my parents were married, my mother was a secretary, but after they got married, she helped to run the family business. Martin was my brother and he was 3 years older than me, and we always used to play together. Until I was 4 years old, we were just a normal, ordinary German family. Then Hitler came into power in Germany and everything changed, putting Jews in danger. My father was Jewish, but thankfully he managed to get away to Shanghai in China, which was one of few countries that Jews could go just in time. My mother was safe because she wasn't Jewish. However, one day she took part in a protest march because the Nazis said that any Germans who were married to Jews had to divorce them. Every single protester was arrested. My mother never told me what happened to them that day, and during the war she was in hiding in Germany. It was clear to see that my parents were very worried about what could happen to me and Martin. They made an extremely difficult decision to send us away to England on the Kinder Transport, which was the children's transport. I didn't have a clue that this was going to happen. However, my brother Martin told me that he had been given English lessons in advance to prepare him for the trip, but I wasn't. I can remember being in a car, which I think was a taxi, and it felt like I was going on an outing, and I was very excited. I remember we went to the station and I had a tantrum because we weren't far away from Berlin Zoo, and I wanted to go there and not to England. Afterwards, I felt like I was a bad girl because I kicked up a fuss. I was convinced I was sent away because I was bad. Excuse me. I remember the train journey very clearly because it seemed to take forever and I became fed up. I just kept saying over and over again, are we nearly there yet? I remember falling asleep and being woken up because we'd finally reached the coast. The next thing I remember is getting on a boat. To me it looked absolutely enormous and it made me feel quite anxious because there was hundreds of people getting on. I became worried about how the boat was going to float with so many people on it. My brother was able to reassure me, and in reassuring me became a pattern the whole time that we was in England without our parents. Everything that my brother said made everything okay. He totally became like my mother. I guess that was because the last words our parents said to him was, "Look after your little sister." During our train journey to England, my mother travelled with us, and because she wasn't Jewish, she managed to get a holiday visa and she took us to our first foster family. However, then she had to go back. The strange thing is that when she left, me and Martin don't remember saying goodbye to her. I suppose that's because it was too painful for us. The first foster father that we had was an elderly clergyman who lived in Kent. I will always remember him with a great deal of affection. He taught me to love the country side by side. He taught me to love the countryside by taking us for walks. However, his wife was quite a few years younger than he was, and to be honest, I really don't think that she wanted to look after someone else's children. She had no children of her own and she was cruel to us. I won't tell you that we were unhappy. Like a lot of other people, we struggled to survive simply because we didn't know anything else. We stayed with that couple for 4 years altogether. I can remember that I was always desperate to please and to be a good girl so that I could go home and live with my parents. However, I kept getting everything wrong. I just couldn't understand the English words, and I knew that I was being scolded. I always knew that I was a bad girl, especially when I wet the bed, because my foster mother would beat me with a leather strap. That horrible nightmare continued for 2 whole years until we went to Quaker boarding school. Then we only went back to Kent for holidays. I remember the school matron taking me into the dormitory and showing me that all of the beds had rubber sheets on them. She told me that everyone wets the bed when they first arrive. After that, I don't remember having a problem. After I'd been at the school for 2 years, we went to a hostel in Richmond, London, which was for homeless children. By then we were in the middle of a war and it was chaotic, and we stayed there for 1 summer. When we left there, we went to live with another foster family in Kent, and they had 5 children of their own. During my time there, I was really happy, especially as their daughter Joan was exactly the same age as me. When we left and went to a third foster family, we kept in touch permanently. The third foster family were farmers, and I couldn't understand why we had to move again. All I could think was that the second family had become sick of me because I was too naughty. It actually turned out that my brother had become very disturbed by the doodle bugs, or the flying bombs, that came over our house. I first became aware that I was Jewish when I was 9 years old. When I was in the school playground, the kids had figured out that I was from Germany, even though I had no accent. They began calling me a Nazi and doing the Hitler salute. I showed them that I couldn't be a Nazi because I wasn't from Germany, and that I'd been kicked out of Germany because I was Jewish. It was then that I developed my Jewish identity. Martin and I somehow managed to survive this way. We didn't have any form of contact with our mother, and I don't know whether or not she wrote any letters. I can remember my father coming to visit us in England when he was on his way to Shanghai. He got on a boat from Southampton and he took me and my brother to London for a few days. For me, it was really scary because all I could think was that my brother had abandoned me. After that, he made a promise that he wouldn't ever leave me again. To be honest, I don't think he did until I was old enough to understand. During the whole of those 10 years, I constantly made myself believe that my mother was dead. I always remember people kept asking me where my mother was, and I always said that she was dead. This made it really difficult for me when my mother came to England after the war, wanting to take me back to Germany. By this time I was 14 years old. I had this picture in my head of this horrible place called Germany, where horrible things were done by people there, and the idea of going there was just impossible. I just couldn't get my head around the fact that this total stranger was my mother. She just didn't look like I could remember, and she didn't speak a word of English, and I didn't speak a word of German. I can remember that I felt completely confused. I just didn't want to have my life disturbed again. The third foster family told me that I could stay with them, so my mother went back by herself. I felt quite bad about rejecting her, but I just wasn't able to deal with the situation at the time. Sometime later, my foster mother took me back to Germany and left me there. That time was horrible for me because I found it difficult to create a new relationship with my parents. My brother was able to stay in England and he went to Cambridge University, where he met a really nice German girl. Sometime later they got married and he happily settled in Germany, where he still lives. We are still really close and I go to Germany and visit him 2 or 3 times a year. Of course, the things I experienced had a huge effect on me. However, I'm very happy with what I've been able to do with my life. I have a fantastic husband, 3 beautiful children and 2 beautiful grandchildren. I think I've contributed to education. After working as a teacher for 19 years, I even decided to give talks in school based on my experiences. I think that this is highly important to me because I believe that education is the way forward for humanity. Everyone needs to know about the horrible things from the past so that we can have a bit more control over violence in the future. Even though we all look different, excuse me, and our body shape, skin and hair colour may be different, we are all human beings. I think it's important that young people think about just how similar we all are. End of part 1 of part 3. Thanks for watching, guys. See you later. Bye.